wholeness and balanced vibrations. Thank you for joining Esoteric Radio, The Activated Body. Today is Tuesday, March 3rd, 2011, and you're with me. My name's Kayo Moon. And we'll be covering many topics today about activation. And a lot of things that I want to focus on today would be about the three bodies, how the three bodies communicate, how activating is going to help boost your immunity, and practical steps that we can take on a daily basis for our body. I'm also pleased to have Sevan join us today as a guest to share his experience about his personal activation. Also on the show today, there'll be a meditation near the end to help us connect with Source. The number to call in for questions is 347-996-5688. You can also post your questions on Blog Talk Radio's chat box and also on the Resistance chat box, which I'm keeping an eye on as switchboard. I also highly recommend to anyone to check out Sevan's book, The Code to the Matrix, which you'll be able to find on the website www.resistance2010.com. And you can also hear the audio version on YouTube. You just have to search The Code to the Matrix. I also recommend to follow along with, with the show in the Activated Body to find in the Timeless Secrets of Health and Rejuvenation. And this is a book written by Andreas Moritz, and it's a book that I've been sourcing for many, many years now, and it's a really great book for how to activate the body. So what is an activated body? And this is a question I've been reflecting on for many days now, and I just wanted to share, my personal definition of that. And I find that an activated body is a body that completes all the functions of the body in a perfect way, in its original pristine way. And that would be resting and elimination, digestion, secretion. All the functions of the body, even reproduction, would be done in a way that is in its pristine origin, in the way that the body is meant to be. And usually, when I thought of the word activation, coming from the Resistance website, it just made me so excited because all these years we've been thinking about enlightenment and we're thinking about all these things, but when it comes to the activation of the body, it's another level. You're doing everything you can in a disciplined way to get you in alignment within your being, and that is also connecting you with the universe. So we have to be consciously aware of three bodies, and that is the body, the mind, and the spirit. Because there's constant communication going on between these bodies. And it's this sophisticated communication that the mind can't really interpret because of how we were taught in education. And we're only taught what we need to know. But this communication is going on a daily basis. And there's so many systems in the body that are constantly communicating. Right now, presently, within us, there's the communication going on, and it's being interpreted. And we're very fortunate that we don't have any control of this communication. Like right now, I'm not telling my heart to pump. It's doing it on its own. I'm not telling my lungs to inhale and exhale. All that is being done on its own. It's being done by the body. And in an activated body, this communication you become aware of it. And in my personal experience, when I would meditate and just sit still, I can really hear in my own way and in my own way interpret it, how this body is functioning and communicating. And today, actually, what I wanted to talk about is a very important system in the body, and that is also aligned with our activation. And in one of the past shows, we told you that the Christ part, the secretion part in the male prostate area secretes this oil, and this is part of Kundalini. And the system that is responsible for this and within our whole body is the endocrine system. And in the endocrine system, this is the system where you have the pituitary gland, the hypothalamus, the thyroid, and what is secreted by the endocrine system is hormones. And these hormones are absorbed in our blood. And this is a very sophisticated form of communication. And what I was doing was looking at all of this system, and it's starting with the pineal gland, the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, the thyroid gland. if you look down on a graph, you'll see that all these glands are also aligned with the 7 systems of the body, with the 7 chakras. So if you just bear with me for a second, starting from the root chakra in the male testes, that's where you would have the male testes, and also in the female area would be the sacral chakra where her ovaries are. And in the solar plexus area, that's where we have the pancreas, the adrenal glands, and the adrenals sit on top of our kidneys, and that is where it's what's responsible is for the balance, that's where we have the cleaning of the area. The thymus gland sits around the heart chakra. We have the thyroid near the throat chakra, and the pituitary, the hypothalamus, and the pineal gland is in the third eye, the sixth chakra, and the crown chakra as well. And I find it very, and even that's just the endocrine system, the digestive system, and those systems also are aligned with the 7 systems. And what I found amazing was that on an etheric level, our spirit body is also communicating with our physical body. So if there's an imbalance within our spirit body, this will manifest in our physical body. And I was reading somewhere that fear and stress shrinks the thymus gland, and that is where it's in the area of the heart chakra. It would shrink the thymus gland. So a heavy amount of fear and heavy amount of stress starts to shrink that. And of course, in the media, there's so much abundance of that. We're constantly being bombarded in our daily lives. A lot of fears. We're bombarded in stress, and it just will go on and on and on from that. And we have to become aware of that, because what that would do is impact your physical body, and you won't be able to function properly and secrete this hormone that we need to secrete and have this sophisticated communication going on in our body. So in an activated body, one is aware of that. One is aware that we need this important communication to be constantly going on within our bodies. And let me just give you an example. If someone has not been taking care of themselves for a whole week and neglecting their body and, eating food that's not been supportive towards them, and on top of that, they want to create an experience at night and have lucid dreams and be able to project, have an out-of-body experience, it won't happen, because what's been happening is that your body, when you're sleeping, is still functioning. It's not resting. When we sleep, we need to rest, and also the body needs to detox. There's an internal clock that the body goes through. That's when melatonin is secreted by the pineal gland, and this gets absorbed into the bloodstream, which triggers the mind to start to fall asleep. And there's all these systems that need to happen for the body to function well. But when a person, especially their mind, I find the mind plays a huge role in this, has been neglecting their body this whole week or even in a day, and yet they still want to have this discipline, they still want to pursue lucid dreaming, it really won't happen. That's why we need to become aware of it. We need to be activated and work on this. And you have to do what you need to get there. And what I did also recently was I gave up a lot of the titles one takes on when one is pursuing this. Usually people would like to say, oh, I'm a vegan, I'm a vegetarian, I'm this. But what we need to know is that from years of eating in a poor manner, from years of eating junk food and just sort of damaging the body, a lot of people have started to have weakening digestion. For some people, it even starts at a very young age when they're introduced to the protein molecules from dairy from a very young age, which makes the stomach digestion go into a shock. So from as a child, as a baby, a person would have digestive issues. And for that person to, later on in life, to be very staunch and very strict within themselves and not pursue alternative methods of bringing back their digestion is not really ideal. And I've even personally known some people that have to stop eating in this strict manner just so they can get the proper amount of protein in their body. I'm not advocating that someone needs to, go back to eating meat and things like that. But if someone has to start sourcing their protein from organic eggs, but they're vegan, by all means, do what you have to do. Make sure it's eggs that are, from chickens that have been, well fed in grains and, free range type of chicken. And if someone has to get their protein sources, again, from goat milk or things like that, like they need it for health purposes, by all means, like don't be really strict. You have to think on another level when you're thinking about the activated body. You can't be strict within yourself because, again, like I said, it's been years of damage that's been happening to your body. And your mind is usually, because from the level of the ego, the mind is constantly trapping us. The mind is what plays these games of making us, be stuck with these titles. So I know some people that, had to start using glandulars because they need it. They need that support. And of course, if someone pursues, shamanic medicine, there's a lot of those glandulars being used. Also, traditional Chinese medicine, where they need to use that. But you just have to think and be conscious and make sure that the products were gone in an ethical manner. And also, use digestive enzymes. That's the best way to boost the body's protein absorption. What's the importance of this protein absorption? The importance is a lot of this hormones that needs to be secreted. The energy source is protein. We need the protein to be absorbed properly within the body to be secreting these hormones. A lot of these endorphins that we need this body to function. The melatonin, all of these need the protein source. And what happens is that a lot of people are not really eating the ideal type of a diet, of a lifestyle. Like I've met vegans that were just eating peanut butter and Coke and calling themselves vegan. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different versions what people go through. And the ideal way of absorbing protein is, first and foremost, you have to keep, like I said, always be aware of the mind. If you're eating food in a stressful way, you're not really digesting properly. And again, if you're someone who knows you're not getting your protein absorption, you really feel it in your body, like you're always tired, you're always weak, you're not resting right, you're irritable, you're stressed out, you need to look into that. You need to really be, intelligent when it comes to that. Again, like I said, things like hydrochloric acid you can source from the enzymes, from purchasing digestive enzymes. That would be great. There's also many things that are blocking our body from absorption, of course, from stress. The other thing is there's blocks in communication of this body, the three bodies. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about today also was about a lot of the toxicity that's in our environment and the toxicity that's traveling within our blood. There's xenoestrogens, plastics that mimic estrogen, the hormone estrogen within our body. And that is also creating this imbalance for many people, especially women. And many women have to go through this early menopause and they have to go through all of this discomfort because there's so much plastics. There's plastics everywhere, there's so many details on that. There's also radiation now. And there's been nuclear testing that's been going on since the 1940s. There's the Fukushima disaster and many more. There's, pollution, and there's also herbicides that's being put in our food, pesticides in the environment, and the list can go on. And one needs to be conscious of these things. And that's why, pursuing an activated body, one will become conscious and know what to do on a daily basis to protect themselves. Again, this information is to empower you, not to put you in a state of fear, not to make you sort of someone who needs to hide in their home. Someone needs to be activated, feel very strong within their being, be very comfortable in so many situations, and you become your own medical practitioner because you will know the sophisticated communication that's going on a daily basis. And from the moment that you wake up in the morning, you will check into your body and see what needs to get done. And that would be simple thing as drinking water as soon as you get the chance. And for some people, they might have to go to a light detox and not eat the whole morning till like noon. And maybe just have, simple things. For other people who don't need to detox, they might have to eat, a heavier food early in the morning because they want to lose weight. And they can eat lighter at the end of the day. That's what you'll need to check in on in an activated body and be able to know and listen to the body and interpret it in the mind, and also listen to the spirit as well. And this is the part where it might get a little, a little far for some people, but bear with me here. Like I said, the 7 energy centers are balanced and they're aligned with all of our major organs, especially in the endocrine glands. So the spirit is constant communication with the body. And checking in on the spirit, being centered, when you're meditating, just connecting with source, you will get this information out of nowhere, and you will know what to do. For me, myself, I've struggled a lot with digestion, and there was a time when I was starting out as a raw Buddhist, and I didn't stay with that. I just stayed with that to detox, and then now I just have a diet where it's a combination of vegan, a combination of vegetarian, and once in a while I'll have dairy if I need to, just to support my body. But I remember there was a time I needed papaya so badly. I really was craving papaya, and I haven't had papaya for many, many years. And later on, I found out there was an enzyme called papain in papaya, and this is the enzyme that helps digest, that helps the digestive system and helps to digest protein. And I just didn't know that. I found out later, and that's what happens is that you just have to trust. You really have to trust the body and know that what the body's going through, it knows. There's also another thing that happens when someone is detoxing is they go through a detox shock, pretty much. It's sort of, and you have to be really careful when you're detoxing. You have to take your time and take it slow. And you'll find out is that in our lower intestine, there's a lot of memory. There's a lot of emotional memory within the body. And the reason why we go after foods that are unhealthy for us, it's to block these emotions so they don't come to the surface, so they don't come to our fore awareness. But in an activated body, you have to go through this. You need to become more aware. And what happens is that within our lower intestines, of course, there's the bacteria there as well, the candida bacteria, which everyone has. And we need a balance of the good bacteria more than the bad bacteria, right? So when someone's going through a detox, what starts to happen is that a lot of their fears, a lot of their disappointments, a lot of the things that they've been blocking with foods like ice cream and pizza and, you name it, starts to resurface. And they don't want to go through that. They want to stop. They don't want to go through this uncomfortable experience. They want to, not be present with it. But we need to be very, very strong within ourselves and just go through that. Some people might have to release a lot of emotions. Go through it, and you'll get support within the spirit. What you can also do is journal a lot of these emotions. If you have access to really good friends, speak to them. Speak it out. If you have to go see counseling, like there's nothing to be ashamed of, really, when it comes to that. Everyone has to go through this. It's really, I think you become more stronger the more you recognize the emotional body. And it's so necessary for us to activate that. It's so necessary for us to clean that up, because by healing a lot of these emotions, really, you start to get to a level in your mind when you recognize that I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people that are blocking these emotions. I'm just one who's brave enough to confront it. I'm just one who's strong enough to handle it, right? And it just gets to that level. And meditation is so wonderful for this, to become emotionally strong. It will really get you to the point where deep breathing really pushes out a lot of the things into the atmosphere, a lot of things that you don't want to experience. And being conscious on a daily basis really helps. So managing the emotional side of life is part of detoxing. And another form of detox that's really great for the body and also for the spirit, for astral travel, is the skin, the largest organ of the body, right? And what you can do is go through hot saunas and doing, scrubs, because there's a lot of pollution that we encounter on a daily basis. And you'll know that you're having a problem with your skin if you start to see little rashes, little bumps. People have psoriasis, eczema. These are all related to the emotional, the mind. These are all related to digestion, because it's the last organ of the body uses to take out the garbage, you know, for that, is that the skin is the organ that the body is sort of its last straw. It's been trying to take out the toxins through the liver. The liver gave up, you know. It's been trying to do it through the kidneys, and with the buffering system. Now it's like, I can't take this anymore. I'm overloaded. I need to do it through the skin, and that's why it shows on some people as psoriasis. It shows on some people as acne, and really, a lot of that has to do with just finding out the source of it. And I 100% will know most of the time it starts with a digestion, that there's a lot of absorption not happening for the body, that there's a buildup of toxicity in the colon. And one has to do what they need to do to get that out. The first thing you should be doing is cleansing, you know, and really just get out what's in the colon, the lower intestines. And a lot of people nowadays have heard about by now, like colon hydrotherapy. You can also do enemas on yourself, you know, in your personal private home, if you're that, you know, if you're capable of that. And just follow the instructions. It's really easy to get that done. And it's just, you know, in an activated body, you don't have time for excuses, you know. You can make up, and the mind will do a lot of things to come up with excuses, and it will make a list for you. It'll tell you you can't do it. Right? And the spirit will feel sort of like trapped in the situation. So a person is constantly coming up with excuses why they can't do it today, why they can't be, you know, detox today, why they need to, you know, not relax. Like, the list will go on and on and on in someone's mind. And a lot of it is just not facing the emotional body. Also, you know, for a person, and this is the part that it's out of our control at this point, with the radiation and the toxicity in the, you know, in the air and the pollution in our food. And I think it should motivate you even more because of that. It shouldn't make you feel helpless. It should make you feel more empowered. You know, there's a lot that's going on in the environment. I need to do my part, you know, to straighten out the situation. So it's 36 minutes in the show. I'm just going to check the chat boxes to see if there's any questions being posted. And I'm just going to check this one question out. Just give me a second. It's just loading here. What I'll also do is just start up with a regiment. Everyone will have their regiment, and this is what I wanted to actually talk about right now, was that when you decide to have a regiment, stick to it. Whatever it is that you decide, if you decide to go the Ayurvedic route, if you decide to go the Chinese medicine route, whatever route you decide to do, be very disciplined in it. And every single person is different. Each body is different. Every person has their own way of detoxing. You have to honor what your body's communicating to you. You have to honor what the spirit is telling you. And you have to really say that you know that what you're doing, the person who's activating, they're not going to do the same way. Like, we're not all the same. So you have to honor what you want to do and just be really disciplined. Just stick to that. This is just loading again. Just give me one moment for the questions. And I'm also just checking right now the resistance chat box. Okay, I'm asked what kind of scrubs for baths. And basically, the kind of scrubs for the skin, the best ones that I found is natural sea salt. And I've also used raw sugar cane as well as a scrub. And using also the natural brittle brush that you can get from like the holistic stores, those brushes. And what you need to do is do it in a circular motion. Don't scrub too hard, and then just point it towards the chest area. You're scrubbing towards the chest area. So if you're doing it from the legs, move towards the area, the chest area, because what you're doing is you're moving the lymphatic system, the fluid in the lymphatic system, and that's the system that is, you know, moving the waste from our body. So I hope that was an answer to your question. Next one. One more question here. And I think we're good. So what I'm going to do is just take a quick minute to grab a drink of water. And I'm going to be bringing in Sevan to talk about his activation experience and if he has any practical advice that he can give us, that he can share with the audience. So that'll be in just a minute, so just give me a quick second.
Yes, I am, wholeness and balance. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you perfect.
Okay, wholeness to everyone. It's just wonderful to be tuning in today for Tuesday's show, which is strictly a show about health. We wanted to make sure we keep a really good balance in our shows these days with introducing everyone to the higher levels of esoteric knowledge on Sunday, but of course to keep reminding people about the preventive maintenance and the maintenance they need to do on their own bodies, mind, body, and soul. It's good to have these shows at least once a week to let everyone know what are the latest updates on what we've discovered. I just first wanted to say that for those that are expecting and waiting on their seatbelts, just bear with us. We had a little situation with the tornadoes in Florida, and that's where our shipping is, and it kind of threw us back a whole week. But just so everyone knows, we definitely have those products ready to come out to you. We just had a little hiccup. And I really wanted to just, explain to people, because I talked about the activated body a lot, and society is definitely changing rapidly. And it's about also calibrating our body to withstand what we're experiencing right now in our reality. So I just wanted to start off with this quote. And the quote it says, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light." And this, of course, comes from the biblical scripture. But I looked at that a lot deeper just recently, and it allowed me to get a lot more insight about what we experience in the activated body. Now, as it starts, it says, "My yoke is easy," and anyone that knows a yoke, it means what you're actually attached to. It's actually a device that's used on cattle to yoke two of them together so that they have more energy to pull something or pull a burden or to carry a burden. And so the first thing is that the statement is saying, well, my yoke is easy, but my burden is light. And I think most people misinterpret that scripture because then they just confirm that, okay, and there's no burden at all. The burden is light. But what it's really saying is my burden is light, meaning that because I'm aware of what's really going on in this reality, because I'm really activated, that has become more or less my burden. Because it is, for us at times, very difficult to watch others drudge about the environment completely unintelligible about what exactly is taking place here, and watching them carry that burden or have energy removed from them and them still not knowing at all what's really taking place. So my burden and the burden of the activated individual often becomes their ability to see. So what I really wanted to focus on is I wanted to focus on what you should be already expecting to happen when you do become activated. And understanding that the term activated means that you're active. So you're literally given or trusted with a mission. And what I wanted to talk about is I want to talk about basically when you first start to activate your foundation, because where you're actually at on this frequency level is on a certain foundation. So when you start to change those frequencies, your foundation, for better lack of words, starts to become, I got the frequencies there, your foundation starts to become not as firm. And so this is the whole up in the air feeling many have when they start to activate, and they have to start separating from other people when they meet new people that are coming into their environment. So that's the first thing to expect as normal, is that transformation that starts to happen immediately with your environment. The other thing that people need to really be aware of, and this is just something that's very simple to divine when you just look into it, but basically where we're actually positioned and how the realms and dimensions are is similar to the layers of an onion. So this means that there is a dimension directly above you and also a dimension directly below you. And what I started to realize is that the reason why so many of these magicians and sorcerers and things begin to pursue the lower levels was because they were daunted at the task of trying to get the control level off of them that was already being, basically whatever is on higher than you controls you, and whatever is lower than you control. And you get a really decent example of this when you look at the state that the animals are in to us, meaning that we control the animals in certain ways where we can eat an animal and the animal can't resist us eating them, etc. And so this is how the dimensions themselves are layered. And it's important to understand that what we're doing now is we're singing, but what is directly above us is a higher level of control, for better lack of words. And we're attempting to release that control so that we can move up this ladder. And to understand this cosmic clock is to understand that there are many different pieces in the clock. There's big cogs, small cogs, but everyone is still remotely a part of the same clock. And so that is how the reality functions. And so what I experienced personally in my activation is starting to realize around me that the people, their names, what they were saying, the places I was passing, where I was moving to, and that whole interaction, as I became more conscious and began to pay attention to things, was actually encoding or had within it encoded deep messages. Meaning that my personal life and what I was ingesting and who I was around and who I was listening to had more messages than sometimes some of the deepest books that I've read, because they gave me a real-time perspective of exactly where I was at in this whole thing. Because that sometimes the question we ask ourselves is, who am I? But the better question to ask first is, where am I? Because it becomes one of the easiest questions, it becomes an easier question to ask first, because you have to pinpoint yourself to where you are in time. First of all, what I've now discovered also, and we'll have another show on this Sunday with the full reptilian disclosure, but the pulse of this planet, or what's actually been happening on this planet, is the continuous Aquarian age. That the reality is actually constructed so the Aquarian age keeps happening over and over and over and over and over again, and we never go into any other ages. And the reason why this began to happen, for those who just understand the mythology of Saturn being able to control time, in that the control of time comes in where basically the reality is allowing us to experience the Aquarian age over and over and over and over, allowing Saturn and Uranus to be our rulers, allowing the number 4 to be the number of the dimension or the basic building block, and then everything that's below that number 4 is actually what we experience in our reality. So basically what I'm saying is that the whole idea of time, this version of time, because remember the indigenous marked the dream time, which was totally different than the time that we're actually on now in this reality. So this time moves a lot faster than dream time. So in other words, the time, your length and expanse of life in the dream world, which can't even be counted, is part of that is being spent here on a planet that has a small time segment, if that makes any sense. So basically this time that we spend here on Earth, which is approximately 72 years, becomes a small sliver of our experience in consideration to exactly how long we exist, which is infinite. So the thing is to not spend your infinite time in one particular place. As I started to note with heat, which is the dimension we're on, it corresponds to the bowels or corresponds to the hell region or the root chakra region because of the frequency that it's on, that heat does not burn you unless you keep your hand on it for a prolonged period of time. And so you can actually touch heat and use it as a catalyst to make you jump or spring to a higher level. And that's the purpose that I see that Earth is playing and the whole dominion of this particular dimension is playing. It's important for the activated mind to also understand the ultimate level of activation is to be able to manifest whatever it is that you are thinking about almost or basically immediately. And how long it takes you to manifest what you're thinking about is how far you've gotten on your quest, because your energy is what begins to determine how fast you can actually manifest something. And so where we're at now in this reality is that, just like you was saying earlier in the show, you have to clean your filters. You have to work on your glands, because you won't take your car out and you won't run your car every single day without ever giving it an oil change. So it makes absolutely no sense for us to have our physical bodies wore down to depletion where they're decaying, when we could do preventive maintenance. And just like a car, you could preserve the car infinitely if you know how to do the right maintenance on it. That's kind of like common sense. And for us to think that the car is more advanced than the human body and is not and is only can exist for such times because it's made out of much more durable elements, that is simply not the case. The body itself is made out of forms and structures in which we're still yet to identify the original origin, but we are understanding that it's incredible. And so I know that.
But I wanted to ask you. I just had a quick question, Sevan.
Great.
Is the question about the mind? Like, how does the mind play in all this? Like, is the mind helping in the activation of the body, or is it hindering it? And is it, the product of the environment of how the person was brought up, or is it just, is it a trap? That's what I've been kind of reflecting on today.
Well, that's a very good question. I'm glad you asked that, because it's actually one of the main things that I wanted to talk about, and I just kind of slipped my mind. But in other words, that the mind, it takes the mind, body, and the soul working in conjunction, first of all, to achieve any higher state of consciousness and activation, etc. So it's not just the mind that is needed to actually activate the whole structure. The mind, the body, and the soul equally become important, because any person, and so this starts to lead us into, again, the teaching and what are the main teachings. So some of the main teachings are exactly from this angle: to start from the mind to eventually activate everything, to start from the body to eventually activate everything, or to start from the soul to eventually activate everything. And the teaching methods range from Tantra to quantum physics or string theory and things of this nature. So what this becomes is, when you begin your meditation, how your mind works better it should be utilized by you, or what you should start with in your meditation. For me, I can start from the low area and I can start from the high area, but I'll explain the difference. When I start from the high area, I think about the highest levels of things that I've discovered through data, meaning that I've actually started to realize through facts and through information and where I'm at and all the factual information that I have. That's using the mind to begin to create more or less a meditative environment that is solely really in the mind, meaning that you're using the crown chakra to create your actual meditative reality. Now, remember, most people can do really well at remaining in one chakra, but it is the cycling of the chakra sensors that is necessary for a fully activated individual, meaning they go from root chakra to crown chakra, root chakra to crown chakra in a complete succession. But when you are activating or you're using the fire, the root chakra, there's only certain things that actually get that area activated, meaning that generally, instead of data and things like that, it becomes more essential thoughts, it becomes more euphoric thoughts and things of that nature that arouse the fire or get the fire going, and then the person basically starts their meditation from that angle. And so there's definitely not one way, like a person thinking that they can just use the mind activator, or a person thinking they could just use the body, or they can just use the soul. They're actually all working in conjunction, and that's why it's important for us to stay in tune with all of them.
That's a really good point. And what I also wanted to know, too, was that it's great that a person starts to become more active and they're going after getting supplements and getting a lot of the natural foods, and I get these questions a lot. If someone will still ask me, yeah, but I'm still not feeling any difference. Like, I'm still kind of stuck with it. And I don't know. Have you experienced that yourself?
100%. And what I noticed, the biggest stagnancy within the activation was physical activity, a lack of physical activity, meaning that I started to notice that when going to the gym and getting that blood pumping and getting that oxygen moving, that the dreams became more clearer than they were previously for me just utilizing things like the Ethereum gold and different products, the MMS, alkalines, etc., that it still could not ultimately replace what was done within the body when it started to utilize its own system to build oxygen through the blood. It becomes more like the fuel, the prana. In addition to that, it works twofold exercise. Notice exercise and exorcism has a lot to do with each other. It's about basically bringing up a spirit or bringing up the spirit within you, because there's literally something that happens when you start to work out because the weight is heavy and you don't want to lift the weight, but you're you're using your mind to overpower your body and saying, hey, I know you don't want to do this now, but it's going to benefit you in the long run. Immediately there becomes a command from a higher source over the body. Because remember, the body would be the lower one. The mind will be the middle one, and the soul will be the highest state, because they say that we have three states. We have positive, negative, and neutral. Yes. And so what literally happens is that when we start to pursue these different states and just see them exactly as they are, that if I use if I don't do something, then I can't expect something to come out of it. The main thing is the world is taught us anything, it's taught us that any type of free ride, any type of believing someone is telling the truth, any type of stuff like that we don't investigate and we don't put our own energy in, it has very little payoff. And so it's very important for us to get involved with ourselves, like start tuning yourself up to actually get ready and get trained for this. And what I also do is because the motivation is very key. Some people need the extra motivation to actually start getting up and exercising and things like that, and oftentimes when they meet like someone who they want to court or someone who they like, they start to work out and it gives them motivation to do that. What literally is happening here is I start to visualize what I would really like to do on the higher levels of consciousness and just how strong some of the beings are there. And I use that to start to fuel me while I'm in the gym or while I'm doing the calisthenics or whatever environment that I'm actually in and I'm starting to exercise my body. So I found that 100% to be one of the cases why people were having such a difficulty in activating the body is because they spent so much time on the internet reading, doing the mind. Yes. And never getting out and actually doing the body so that the soul can slightly be entertained. Because what's literally happening, what I noticed is that's why they like to call these cycles 11, because it literally becomes a double or a dual or sometimes a splitting within the self, because the soul has been attempting to try to convince the mind and the body, because the soul is connected to the frequency of the spirit. So it is spirituality within itself. In the beginning, it's always been attempting to convince the body and the mind that, hey, we need to be doing something great, you don't need to be eating that, etc., but it's been losing that battle, so nothing's changed. The fact is that we're just now having someone else instruct us or becoming more aware of that process that's taking place within us, and then we're starting to see that ultimately, right now, if we continue to neglect the soul and what it's explaining to us and what we need to do, then it could land us in a very tight spot because we're already in one. And right. We're in the crucible itself.
I also wanted to ask you about the environment. I feel that, personally for me, I had a much nicer, a much easier time being in a warmer climate, which I was a few months ago actually. And, being in an environment where the body felt a lot more lighter. Now I'm in an area, now it's coming out of winter, and I have to work that much more harder and be that much more aware of my body that it's going to go into a series of stressful moments, and it's not easier to handle it. So I'm pretty much asking you, what can someone do, when they're in a place where the seasons change really harshly? In the morning it's freezing, in the afternoon it's kind of mild, and then it goes back to being freezing. What can a person do to stay, active in that way?
That's a very good question. The main thing, definitely the environment is important, but this is also one of the main things that becomes the greatest challenge with everyone is changing their environment, because most people that are tapping into spirituality also experience some type of separation from monetary sources for a moment. Oftentimes they don't have the means to actually change their reality according to what they know will be harmonic to what they want to experience. However, this also brings up a very important point that we were also just discussing in the chat room. We have the mind now kicking back in, and because the mind is wholly possible of actually creating an environment within itself. This becomes in extreme cases, but I will explain to you that I've had to utilize these methods before and being in positions where I was not able to maneuver and move around as much as I wanted to. So basically where the mind starts to psych itself out or psych the body out, it basically knows situations that are a lot worse than the situation that it's currently experiencing. It has a reference point for that. And it starts to absorb at least the appreciation of being in the environment that they're in now, so that they can start to build up the energy that's necessary to change their environment. Remember, all this stuff is working by finite rules, and no one's going to come and change these rules. It's just how the whole universe works. So you can't fix things in the position of being sad and dysfunctional. You have to psych yourself out and say, okay, I'm just going to use this to fuel me and to allow me to never let it happen again, and I'm going to get off, I'm going to make a push this one time. And so basically what it becomes is in an environment that you can't immediately change because it's changing all the time. and making you unstable, just keep in mind that the mind starts to come into to play here, allowing you to be settled with understanding that all around the world right now, we have some very difficult situations that just as humanity, we're all connected, are facing. In many of our environments, they're sometimes not exactly what we want them to be, but habitable enough for us to do the first part of our mission. And that's another thing that people have to realize is that if you ever thought of a galactic consciousness, a universal consciousness, and being a citizen of the galaxy, of the universe, and aiding in different types of ways, you have to understand the first thing that happens is the interview. That Earth still is a recruiting ground for multiple beings, like the humans and the draconians and all that are not the only ones that are here. But it becomes the recruiting ground for noble, benevolent spirits that are existing and they by deeds. And that's why I wanted to finish my conversation off today about astral wealth. And it's a very interesting title that I've come up with. But it's basically many of us have been born in this world and not have the fortune of others, meaning that we often see that certain individuals have it better, for better lack of words, even though I don't believe in such concepts because I believe you come into exactly what you earn. But what really happens is that we at times look at our past and say, well, geez, if my mother had just been more wealthy or if my father had stuck around, and so we have all of these things that we like to comment about in regards to our particular surroundings when we're growing up. But the fact of the matter is that we just have to realize that, I lost my train of thought really quick there. My computer went blank. But basically, we have to realize that our deeds start to build up our next existence and how we're going to be positioned there. Because remember, it's just an onion. You're not going anywhere but higher or lower, or you're going to remain the same. So the fact is that you can build now in this world, understanding how to tap into the mind, body, and soul and to increase it. You can actually set up your status for the next world so that you will fare better. Because remember, anything below this is going to definitely be more difficult because it's more dense. It takes more energy to move around. Anything above this is going to be more easier because it's airier, it's aether. And you want to make sure you still, however, set up your status the proper way. And it becomes your own responsibility, and that responsibility is determined based upon what you do and how you act and how you treat your own body, because your body is the universe. The only thing that is the planet and the universe. Our androgynous body is actually an androgynous body inverted is actually the diagram for the whole universe. It's the map for the whole universe. But what you still do see on the end, or the connecting points of that hand of the androgynous body, is a connection to also another entity, such as an insectoid prototype. And then its connections, or its appendage, is also connecting into another body. So what we really do have right now is just a map for our immediate universe within us. And we were taught, and we are now being retaught to explore that, the real map, which is your body, and to explore those regions and to bring light to those regions so that you understand what's there and you can learn from it. So in this case, we're encased with everything that we need because we're learning from ourselves. That's how it really works. That's how this thing is designed.
Awesome. Thank you.
Again, we begin to learn from ourselves. You're learning from your own mistakes. You're learning from your own experiences, etc.
Mm-hmm. It's a constant journey. There's always growth happening for us, and we need to just keep being active. And that's why I like this title, that a person needs to be constantly moving and not to be stagnant. And when one's stagnant in the body, it shows on the other bodies as well, on the mind and the spirit. So thank you so much, Sevan, for joining us today. What I'm going to do is address the question that was asked in the Resistance chat box, and someone wanted to know about soy products. And really, that's a question a lot of people come across. And what I can say from that is soy is one of the products that's heavily processed, that's heavily genetically modified, even organic soy. And as well, I can only speak from a personal experience. My personal experience with soy is that when I started pursuing activation, and, like I said, I gave up the titles, I gave up the whole thing about, being vegan, vegetarian, and I just totally started honoring my body. What I found out was that soy was holding me back, was actually holding me back in my activation. It made me feel it would take me 3 to 4 days to recover when I would have a meal with anything soy related in it. So, but then there's some times that I need to have soy because, it's an emergency, I'm out, I'm doing something where I'm outside and I won't have any access to good food, and I have to go to a restaurant and all they have is something with soy in it. So really, it's a decision about, is this going to be the day where I'm going to have a lucid dream? I might have to give that up because I'm going to have soy today. Like, there's these kind of thoughts that one has to go through. So I'm just saying soy is a personal choice. If you need to have soy because you're transitioning right now and you just started eating, you just started becoming a vegetarian, a lot of people just start taking soy because it's something that it's a substitute for meat. But there's going to be a level where you're going to become lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter in your body, and you're not going to need soy anymore. And you're going to try to have more natural food. So we have 6 minutes left. So what I'm going to do is just kind of pull the brakes right now and take us out with a meditation. And what I want is you to get comfortable in a sitting position. Have your back straight. And if you're someone who, can't be comfortable sitting, then you can also lie on the ground. Just make sure that you have your back, straight and aligned and your feet aligned with your hips. So if you're sitting, make sure you're not slouching, you're sitting upright. And in this meditation, it's a breathing meditation, and what you're going to be doing is taking a full deep breath in and holding it and taking a full, exhaling that out. And just keep doing that for 10 breaths. And the last breath, hold it in. And hold it in as long as you can. And just really slow down your breathing. Pace yourself and get into a natural breath. I don't want you to be focusing really. I just want you to be as blank as possible. Because what you're going to be doing in this meditation is connecting with Source. So I'm going to take my voice out of this. I'm going to push us out with the meditation. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And, continue on with your activation and just be really disciplined. So thank you for joining us. Wholeness and balance.
Wholeness and balance to everyone. And I'll also check you out on Sunday.
Yep, make sure you catch that show with Sevan on Sunday.